Hello, everyone, and welcome to Move, Crush, Count. This is the podcast where we learn how achievers are changing business growth strategies. We're here to help you grow your business and show you how to move the crowd, crush the competition, and count the money. Today's interview is sponsored by J&L Marketing. J&L Marketing is a digital and direct marketing agency that delivers results with strategies that help you outsmart your competitors, your toughest competitors, so you don't have to outspend them. The title of today's interview is Sales Training Traps to Avoid. My name's Scott Joseph. Today, I am talking with one of the premier sales training experts, David OBrien, about sales training mistakes that stop a lot of business leaders dead in their tracks, really before they ever get started. So I want to welcome David OBrien.
Good morning. Hey, good morning, buddy. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I am doing good, David. Thank you. I appreciate you. You're always welcome on this show. So you're a well-known expert on the subject of sales training. You've got an incredible tool to help, and we can talk about that towards the end. But really, I want to get into a lot of the mistakes, and I want to thank you for agreeing to share your extensive knowledge and your experience to help our audience avoid a lot of the common mistakes that happen. I think everybody goes into any type of sales training program or initiative with the best intentions. And doesn't always work out, or it doesn't always stick, I should say that, or it's not always retained. So I love what you bring to the table here. I think you're really onto something great. And of course, it's already been proven. So that's what we want most. So thanks again for joining us. Let's jump right in and introduce you to our audience, get them a little bit more familiar with your background, where your experience comes from, so they can relate to where they are and how they can relate with what your experience is to where they are right now. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, and then we'll jump into specifics.
Scott, my sales background started in automotive, right? I'm a son of a dealer who grew up in a dealership where, and let's start to make some distinctions for all of the audience, right? You grow up in a car dealership and you're taught, okay, ask a few questions and then get to the shiny, really cool smelling thing in the middle of the showroom, right? Clean, beautiful, chrome, leather, hurry and get to that. But ask some questions, but get to that. So I grew up in that environment. And then, in the late 80s, I got a chance to partner with some guys and have my own business. And as that evolved, all of a sudden I wasn't selling the same. I didn't have this shiny thing. It was an intangible, right?
Yep.
It was called training, right? And my audience was you. My audience was a car dealer, right? And all of a sudden I had this business owner like Scott Joseph who said, I don't really appreciate this whole idea that you're just going to show up, throw up after asking two questions, right? And I would think you ought to listen more. Well, I got to tell you, for me, I didn't get it for a long time until I got to Aon Corporation. And the company I was with, part of, we got bought by a division of Aon Corporation. And then I got involved in this thing called guided discovery. It was this whole idea about really creating deep awareness with people before you sell. The same stuff our mothers and fathers all told us: 2 ears, 1 mouth, listen twice as much before you talk. Fast forward, I have become really deeply involved for the rest of my career in this whole idea that says the more I listen to Scott, the more I listen to somebody, the less work there is in let me tell you about all this cool, shiny stuff.
Hey, Dave, the more people that listen to Scott, life becomes easier for everyone. I try to tell Sandy that all the time.
I didn't want to take my first dig because Sandy sent me a whole list of your good friend sent me a whole list of, be sure you get this in and this in. But so I started to listen more than I talked, and since then, along with helping automotive, right, I have been blessed to do training for OEMs, right, to help their team learn how to sell more effectively to the dealer. I've been blessed to do companies like Sony Corporation. I've actually gotten to travel to different countries and do it. The most interesting sales training I ever did was in Thailand. That's another story. So I've gotten to play with sales training in lots of places, definitely learn from mistakes. And I think I have a perspective that looks at today's automotive environment and says, okay, it's time to catch up with this consultative. Let's listen deeper. Let's let customers go down their own path, right? Let's not force everybody. Well, when are you coming to the showroom? Wait, now it's time for the test drive. Now we park in a sold line. How do we break some of those molds in automotive so that we do sales in ways that it's got to connect with the customer better? I lost you. I can't hear you. Oh, yeah. Don't know what happened. Mm-mm. That's odd. A StreamYard thing that never happened before. I'm here. Are you there?
Can you hear me all right now?
Yeah.
Testing new speakers on StreamYard. Sounds like
You came back.
Yeah. Let me. I'm making a mic change. Let me see if it goes back to the.
It actually shows it on mute on my end. Doesn't show mute, but I can't hear you. Whatever you did a minute ago worked. I hear you. I hear
All right.
Yep.
You ready to roll?
Yeah.
All right. So for whatever reason, my mic shut down on me. The computer's not taking it, but I switched to the computer microphone. So hopefully the quality is okay.
Yeah.
All right. So where I was going with this is you've had a lot of training, you've had a lot of experiences. I'm curious where most of your where did your best knowledge, where do you feel like you benefited the most? Was it from formal training or from actual experience, succeeding and failing?
I got to say it was a little bit of both. So there was a lady named Nancy Martini who taught me consultative selling skills. And Scott, my goal after I completed the class, because I had written some training classes by then, I had a master's in behavioral psych. I was an educated person, but I wanted to prove her wrong, if that makes sense, right? So I come out of Nancy's training and I go, okay, I'm going to go try this. And I tried some things and they worked. I did some things awkwardly, they didn't work, and I practiced. Sales, to me, sales training, and I don't know, I'm curious what you think, right? I think it's a skill, and skills are stuff like muscles. You got to use them, you got to practice with them. And even when you practice with them, sometimes it takes a coach to come along and go, wait, Scott, move your grip a little. Wait, this, you're lifting it wrong. You're going to hurt your elbow, kind of stuff. And so for me, I had those people around me who went, okay, Dave, you did that in that presentation. It didn't work well. And, some of the mistakes, and it was one of your early questions, some of the mistakes that I made most often was I wanted to tell about my product before I listened enough, right?
Yeah.
And I think for us in sales, we get excited about whatever it is we're selling, whether it's the shiny thing in the showroom or the intangible in the F&I office, or even think about our service advisors, right? The 30,000 mile maintenance on your wife's Honda is an intangible? How do I frame that it's going to be good for her and the kids? So if we don't practice those skills, if we don't start to do more questions instead of, wait, let me tell you how great the new technology is, or wait, let me tell you how great this product's going to protect you 4 years from now. If we don't stop and start to get much more consultative and understand Scott's needs, our customers' needs, whoever, right? We're going to struggle. That's always been, for the last 30 years of my life, the lesson that I learn. I learn it over again when I don't do it, Scott, and I learn it and it reinforces when I do it right.
You know, it's interesting. Back when I was responsible here at J&O Marketing for our own sales training, way back in the, let's say the mid to late 90s, probably all the way to about 2005. I used to do role playing where you bring up questions. And to me, that's the most important part of it, because if you don't know the motivations, and more importantly, why they're motivated, why a consumer or a prospect is motivated by something or potentially buying, it's very you're just going to sell your flat percentage. You're not going to really improve much. And so I want to be more persuasive, and I want to make sure I talk about what's most important to the client. So I used to role play
that.
And the rule was this: you get this, because it was just for the sake of practice. Your entire pitch, you're not allowed to make one statement. You can only ask questions. And what it made us do and forced us to do was ask a question in a way where the client would have to answer and almost sell themselves, rather than me spewing out what I think they should believe. So in other words, because you know it as well as I do, if a prospect, if I say something, they may or may not believe it. But if they say it, whether it's true or not, it's true to them. You know, and perception is reality. So if I'm saying, you know, we had this thing called response analysis. If it was going to be selling that portion of my thing, I might sit there and say, you know, why is tracking this data and having these insights, or why is having data and insights so important to you? All right. They'd tell me that. If you were able to do this, this, and this, how would that impact? So in other words, I would force them to role play, and the only thing they could do was ask questions. Now, obviously in real selling, that's not going to be the case, but we exaggerated it so much in the role play that by the time they got to the real, the questions were more natural, and it was much easier, more comfortable for them. What do you think of that?
I think you were on target, and it's, you know, all BS aside, it's partly a recipe for why the firm was successful in those days. Because when you start asking questions, think about the question you just said, right? So if you look at somebody in a dealership today or back then and you go, hey, describe for me the kind of data you use every morning to frame the day. Well, there's only two ways to answer that. It's, here's the data I use, or, oh crap, Scott, I'm not using any data. Do you have any I should be using? Can you help me? Can you teach me a little?
That's right.
Either way that question goes, it allows us to know how to bring value and how to be a true partner to that client. And I think the same thing's true if it's something as simple as an automotive sale, right? When I say to you, and I know you now, right? So this is interesting, right? If I say to you and Trish, so describe to me the most important uses and ease of use applications in a new vehicle. Well, your answer is totally different today than it was 2 years ago.
Correct.
Right? Because
my answer is going to be, my answer is going to be different than the next guy and the next guy and the next guy. So that's right.
And today you're looking at it going, okay, so it's got to be easy to get some strollers and things in and out of. I want seats that move super easy. You know, 2 years ago, you might have said, man, I want the exhaust to make a really good growl. You know, so if we don't learn those things.
I might still say that.
The combination still is, let's talk about that later. I have a new one. But, I just think sometimes that we spend so much time on different kind of questions.
Yeah.
And, in automotive, we have fallen victim to what I call questions that determine my interest level. So, Scott, I'm just curious, right? Have you checked what you owe on your trade lately? Have you?
I have a
Right?
demo.
I know, right? But we've taught them these kinds of questions. And by the way, it's not just automotive. Across all industries, they have their qualifying questions. Are you qualified enough for me to spend time with you?
Correct.
And I don't ask qualifying questions. I ask questions that allow people to share with me what you said. Tell me about your motivations. Tell me what you care about. Tell me what would be important to you that would facilitate you wanting to do business with me. I want to understand that stuff deeply. Once I know that, okay, now I'm in way better shape. And my presentations become far more valuable to people because they're far more tailored to people. And that's what you were teaching your people to do.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
What I always wanted them to do, and I called it elevating the value of the question. So once you get a surface level answer, I wanted them to dig deeper. I wanted them to find out why, if they did receive whatever they were wanting, what does that do for them? If they didn't receive it, what does that do? How do they view that? What does that either potentially cost them or impact them? And so I wanted them, because I wanted to also get into more emotional answers, and I wanted them to internally feel, I wanted the prospect to feel that either that joy or that pain on whatever we were talking about, And so to me, but I want to get into how you're teaching it, and more importantly, why it's being retained, because I think you're onto something. So let's go with a very specific mistake. We got the traps to avoid here, right? For the title. So let's get real specific on this. If we're talking about the average business out there and they want to they feel like their sales team needs to level up, and they're going to start some type of sales training initiative that's an ongoing program. And forget that. They want to just start a sales training program to level up their team. What do you think is the number one mistake that most business leaders make?
They err on the side of the personality of the presenter instead of the ability to connect with adult learners. So you get me at my best doing a presentation in front of a management team, and people go, yeah, no, he's exciting. Yeah, that's great. That our people will be motivated by that. And instead, you put people in a training environment, and they like the motivation. They may like Dave OBrien. They may like the excitement. I may have a couple of good jokes built through the presentation. But adult learners, all the science, don't take my word for it. All the science tells us adult learners, they learn and change when you get their buy-in. So go back to how you were saying you sell. Now, Scott, that's what we have to apply more of to learning environments. We got to quit calling them training. We got to call them learning environments, in my opinion. And the reason we do is because learning is a facilitated activity where I help you recognize the need and opportunity for change. I don't do that by telling you. I do that by creating questions. I do that by creating an environment where you go, oh, I see how this could help me. I see how this will be better. And then I do what you said, which is I then give you an opportunity to practice in a safe place. Practice in a safe place before you ever leave. Not fill out a questionnaire that said you heard me. Heard and change are different.
Yep.
Skills require practice. And adult learners, you got to put them in an environment where you can help get the chip off their shoulder. Because by the way, many of them got sent there with, hey, look, I'm bringing this training company in. There's things coming and you guys aren't doing so good. And this guy is really strong and this lady is awesome and they're going to do this and this. Bam. And they come in with an edge. It is a serious story. So our job when we start training is always to figure out who the hostage is, because there's hostages in the room. You want to know a mistake not to make if you're a business leader right now? No matter who you hire, create an environment before you send them to us that is, this is not a reflection of you guys suck. This is a reflection of we're investing in you for the future and the changes in the economy that might come. Send them with 5 days warning, right? Don't tell them the morning before or 2 days before. They didn't have daycare possibilities set up. They didn't have their schedule or the church group in the 4 o'clock meeting or whatever, right?
Yeah.
You want to stop making those mistakes first. Set us up right. Pick us because we were going to help your people learn, not because you thought we had good jokes, good motivation, wore a great tie, and had some sort of energy. And by the way, there's a lot of good ones in automotive doing the right things, right? But they still lean more towards the run around in the front of the room, excitement. Look at that person's energy. And I think that's the number one mistake I still watch happen through all sales training across many industries.
Well, you've participated in a couple of our events.
Mm-hmm.
What you just said is the number one reason we don't have speakers at them.
Yeah.
And because to me, we learn better when we're participating, not just sitting back listening. You know, when you're participating, so I would take this a step further with you, because really, when we involve more of our senses, right, not just hearing, but we're seeing, we're talking, we're feeling it, whatever it might, I think we retain information better too. So when we're fully participating in a process, I think that just sticks a lot longer, doesn't it?
The way you create the mastermind tables is one where people have built enough relationship before we sit down and we're willing to expose a little of ourselves, right? So if you sit down at a table and you go, okay, this is a table about everybody's going to lose 5 pounds before the next meeting. Well, I know those people well enough, Scott, that I'm willing to look at Brad Mugg and go, dude, so seriously, I got to quit eating white bread. I mean, I got to give up bread, man. I got to give up a late night cookie, right? Because Brad's not going to make me feel bad. He's going to go, hey, man, I had the same problem. Let me tell you what we worked on. Here's what I do. Here's how I do it. And there's everybody in that room that gets close enough over time that we're okay exposing those little warts that then enable us to have deep conversations, listen to best practices around us. What if learning could be like that?
Could not agree more.
Trust their facilitator better, because we didn't come in. It's the number one thing I interview for on our team. I go, look, so seriously, this can't be about you. You can't go to a dealership and go, let me tell you how great I am. See, this is what I've accomplished. You just need to listen to me. Because it causes more shutdown, and you know it. That's why you designed Business Bourbon and Cigars the way it is, because if somebody came in and did that, it would create the same shutdown.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If there was one mistake out there that flat causes almost every business leader that does it to just fail when it comes to sales training, all right, what would that be?
Not vetting the company for how they will do the learning, and choosing the company based on a PowerPoint or a sizzle of a brochure. There's a whole different group of folks out there in all sales training that are doing what you described. They are doing facilitated conversations. They are doing role plays. They're creating environments where people feel safe to practice. They're living it. And then there are events. And by the way, I still read some motivation stuff. I listen to podcasts. Motivation is not a bad thing, but I think we have to separate in sales training, which am I choosing? Am I choosing to elevate my people's skills so we're ready for whatever comes next in the economy? that my team has the confidence to go create conversations that create business? Or do I want to have somebody there that provides an event-like environment that charges them up for a period? They shouldn't be combined, but I'm not saying we shouldn't do both.
What do you think the consequences of making these type of mistakes are? I mean, obviously, well, it's a waste of time and money, but what's a real consequence?
Salespeople don't change. They smile.
Or they leave.
Yeah, they leave. They do artificial harmony. That's my favorite word that Brian Kramer uses. They get in there and they go, boss, this was great. Boss, this was great. Yeah, I'll put it to work. And then a week later, they're not doing what they learned because it never sank in. They never went, yes, I need to. And if leaders don't start choosing differently, then they're going to be stuck with the results and the turnover. And hey, you've heard our Sarah Van Tyne talk about it recently. It's got this retention thing. It's real money. You can't ignore not getting people through the retention curves of the 2 and 3 year point anymore. We just don't have enough humans in the economy to go get new ones.
I'll tell you right now, this isn't on the dealership side, but on the agency side with J&L, it doesn't take 3 years for our salespeople to make a lot of money. Right. However, it does take 2 to 3 years before that light bulb seems to go off to where it's almost like they're on autopilot, and it really exponentially starts growing from there. So if you don't get them to that point and you're always starting over, that can be frustrating.
Pain.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
What do you think is a sales training mistake that business leaders make where they think, you know what, this is the right thing to do, and maybe they don't recognize that, no, it isn't the right thing to do?
They say, you've got to get my people strong at objection handling. I need you to absolutely make sure that they can crush objection handling stuff. And they don't slow down to go, I need you to make my people great at the whole beginning prior to the process where they ask questions and learn so much that they avoided objections later.
Correct.
They tell us in training, fix my consequences instead of fix the root cause of the problem.
Yeah.
And if they would tell us, fix the root cause, get my people the best of any company at objection avoidance, by building a relationship with people that causes people to open up, share, and therefore allow you to sell value more appropriately, there'd be less objections.
Correct.
They wouldn't go into.
Well, you're saying, you know what to say, you know what to emphasize. You're not wasting time talking about stuff that the client or prospect doesn't care about. You're not, quite honestly, it's much more professional to ask the right questions because it shows a sincere interest in the prospect rather than your own motivations, right? I mean,
you and I have a friend in common who early on in my work, I said, I want to teach salespeople to be better advocates for their customers. And he said, Dave, man, you know, I know you've been in dealerships. I know you ran a dealership, but you've been away too long. You can't tell them to be an advocate. That's a bad word in automotive. And I go, so I'm just going to tell you, modern car selling means I ask great questions so that you realize I am an advocate who's going to help you find the right car, right deal, and it's all going to work out. I got you. And Jim Ziegler says it all the time, right? Hey, be the executive salesperson that everybody wants to come to for everything.
Yeah, it's funny.
Go
ahead.
No, we just don't teach them to be advocates. We teach them accidentally or on purpose to be adversarial.
The hot topic, there's always a hot topic. If you want to bring up, you've been talking a lot about automotive. If you want to bring up a very hot topic when it comes to selling in automotive, All you got to do is bring up, should I test drive or should I not test drive? And watch. And I'm in Clubhouse in a room, and Brian Kramer was a big help in that room for me, because first off, when I buy a car, I haven't test drove a car. And I know I have demos, but when I have bought cars, I have not test drove a car in 20 years.
Yeah.
And that's, I've already done my research. I've already done everything I need to do. I've picked out and inspected out, and this is what I want to buy. I don't need to come in and waste my time and drive it and do all this other stuff. And I'm not saying everyone's like that. I'm saying I'm like that. And if I was trying to buy something and I'm communicating, whether it's email or phone, and I haven't gone to the store yet, and this person's just say, well, you need to come in and test drive, and they're just trying to force that down my throat. Or when I get there, they want me to do that. I'm just like, I probably wouldn't allow it to happen to me, because a little bit, my personality probably wouldn't allow it. But I've got to tell you, I'm just going to find a store that wants to sell it to me the way I want to buy it. I don't feel like wasting my time. When I have a shoulder problem, all right, and I have to go to my general doctor before she'll just recommend me to a shoulder doctor, all right, that bothers me. I don't want to waste my time going to you when I know I'm going to go in there and you're going to say, well, I need to refer you to a shoulder specialist. Just send me there.
Yeah, it's just, we have 70 years of so much tradition in sales. In sales in general, we were taught, get people to hold the product, get them to feel it, touch it, because of something you said, which is get more senses involved. And it still is ground into sales methodology that if people don't touch and feel it, you won't be as profitable. They won't like it as much. They might shop around. There's all that stuff that permeates automotive. Yet I came home from a trip yesterday, and in my garage, my neighbor had taken delivery for me. I have a new 2023 Wrangler electric hybrid in my garage. I never drove it. I ordered it. It's here. I'm looking forward to taking it today for its first drive. And I don't think I'm unique because I hang around automotive. We have to get to where we're willing to meet people where they want to go down their buying path. There's a whole generation who test drove a car through a virtual reality goggle, an AR VR experience, and that's going to become way more common. So we have to be able to go, where are you, Mrs. Jones, in your buying process? And how do I help you accomplish the goals you want that let you end up with your new whatever? And I think that's true in any product relationship today. I have to meet the consumer. And by the way, you see it at J&L. I see it in my company. My prospects and yours have done more research about me outside of the phone call.
Correct.
Whether it was LinkedIn, my website, recommendation sites, peer review sites.
Yeah.
And people's test drive and experience of the product today is happening, but in very different ways than the traditions. And I'm okay with that.
So we're getting some comments from Facebook, and I'm going to assume this is Michael Porro because I know him well, and he's a frequent guest and participant in the show.
One the client wants. Amen.
Yeah, exactly. And he does what he preaches at that store at Honda World's here. It's actually across the street from my office here. I could walk over and see him afterwards, but he's a phenomenal person.
Such a commitment to the customer, and he has created a culture and a staff that is the same way. He wouldn't tolerate any different. We have to help all automotive, and I think we have to help all businesses get that way. We have to care more about what they want.
Yeah, everything you're saying here, to me, selling is selling. When I started the agency, what I learned in selling vehicles transferred over to what I saw, to what I taught my salespeople in selling. You know, if you look at the top, 5 objections across all business verticals, 3 of the 5 are probably the same. Oh, it costs too much. I've got to ask this person. It's the same common objections.
Look at one more
They might
product. Got to think about it.
Yeah, that might be said slightly different, but we're all dealing with the same stuff. So selling, when you talk about asking questions and really digging deeper at the beginning, that's why I loved when I asked you the question about what's the mistake that everyone thinks they're doing right, but they don't recognize that's the wrong solution. And you brought up, help my people handle objections.
Yeah.
If you sell right at the beginning, the close is easy, because another common one, the second one you probably get is help my people close better. I want stronger closing. And there's all these sales trainers out there. Oh, do my closings class, buy my closing class, buy my closing workshop, and do all that stuff. To me, that whole workshop should just be on questions at the beginning, because I'm going to eliminate most of the objections and most of the closing problems at the end when I do it right at the beginning.
It happens all the time. When you've put people on the right product, whatever your level of products are, right? You put them on the right product because you learn what they care about, what they really need, what they say about what they want to spend. When you've listened to all that, you don't have as many conversations about, well, I just can't afford it. It's too much, right? Because there's no surprises by the time you got there. So you don't need, and by the way, I taught lots of that stuff in the 90s. I taught lots of, here's how you do closing techniques, everything from gas mileage closes to frequency of repair closes in the finance department. Yeah. Today's consumer has really put their foot down and said, yeah, I just see the world different. I want the experience to be more like this. And if we do our part, it gets easier. I'm not going to pretend it's easy, but it gets way easier.
I love what you just said about no surprises at the end, because if you're test closing, and I hate the word test close, because I think when people hear it, they immediately go to a soft close type. To me, a really good, effective test close isn't one that just gives me a yes or no answer. I don't like to ask necessarily. I'll ask a yes or no question every now and then, but a good test close to me also gets the client or the prospect to communicate why that element or that feature and that benefit I just talked about will bring value to them, or help them avoid something, or help them gain something, and let them talk about it and what it will do for them. So, and by doing that along the way, so it's not just qualifying questions, needs, wants questions, right? We're also asking more intelligent test closing questions along the way that build value, and also let you know, as the salesperson, where you stand on that teeter-totter of buy versus don't buy. So when you get to the end, you can be confident in asking for the sale, asking for the deal.
We take a kind of a radical approach here in what we share with our clients, right? I tell sales teams, no matter what they do, and by the way, I do this across industries because we still help additional industries, right? I go, stop asking people if, and talk to people about how. Not if they want to complete a transaction with me. Let's talk to people about how. I do it with dealers. I do it with consumers in the showroom. I do it with anyone. I look at them,
especially today.
Yeah, I go, Scott, so typically my customers like to do this next, then this, then this. Is that what works for you? Or should we make any adaptations? How do we help you get to your goals?
I hope Michael's listening to that, because that fits right in with what he does. That's perfect.
And people will tell you how they will move forward with you. Correct. We have to stop saying, if we do something, would you do something? Yeah. Let's get out of the if business. Customers have a process. They've been going through it. It's unique to them. And let's look at them and go, so do you want to do this, this, and this, or should we do something different? And you tell me how, and I will help facilitate it. and
My
tremendous difference.
my dad was a phenomenal salesperson and an outstanding general manager for the Jeff Weiler organization.
There you go.
And so one thing when I was selling with him, he would not let us use the phrase, "If I could, would you?" You were not allowed to do it.
Wise
He
decision.
heard it. That was just banned in the showroom. I brought up Brian Kramer earlier. I don't want to harp on these. I will move on after this, but it's a funny point. So we're in this heated discussion, and I feel like I'm getting ganged up on in this clubhouse room. And finally, Brian goes, "Guys, let me ask you a question." He goes, "Have you sold all your Tundras in the last year and a half, in the last 18 months?" Yeah. He goes, "How many of you test drove any of them?" Well, the answer is none, because nobody had any in stock. So you've sold every single one of these vehicles and you haven't test drove anything. All right.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I thought it was a good point he made. But let me ask you, what are some of the sales training tools or resources that you think have become obsolete or about to?
I'm going to name a couple, right? I'm not a big fan of mystery shopping. I'm really protective of the trust we're supposed to build with the employee. And if I mystery shop you, I could be taking you away from a real phone call. So I'm not a big mystery shop fan. I think we have to find better ways to help people stay sharp by listening to their calls and coaching them instead of mystery shopping them.
Would you mystery shop a competitor and use it as a training as to what you liked and did not like about the process of a competitor to educate a team?
We have done that for clients. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Therefore, you're wasting your competitor's time.
To a degree, right? But I'm not the one who was engaged to build trust with them, right? Right. From a learning environment, if I don't build trust, they don't listen and they don't change. Number two, I think we have to get away from using video in the long form of people are going to watch a video for 20 and 30 minutes at length. The last 25 years of education, meaning high school through college, the classes have shortened. There's absolute Google data that says our attention spans have changed. Our patience level for I want to know what I want to know has to be more exacting. So I think we have to learn how to deliver micro learning more effectively. And the third thing I think we have to learn to do better is individualize. I don't have the same sales skills problems as the person sitting next to me in my company. My problems may be different, right? Yeah. And some of that's based on my personality. Some of that's based on just how I grew up, what industries, and quite frankly, what my skill level is. So I think individualized, more micro, and more trust building with the learner. The OEMs don't make trust easy about learning. Not trying to pick on them, but they weaponize this darn data about how often our people are logging into their system, how many completions they've had. Meanwhile, there's somebody in the showroom who's selling the answers for $50. So, we've weaponized too much of learning. We've made it too long. We've made it not individualized. Those things have to get better. And thankfully, the technology and the attitude exists to make them better. So I think it's coming.
Do you think the environment out there, what percentage of a sales team do you think is really willing and wanting to learn, to improve themselves and dedicated to doing? I can remember back when I first started selling cars, I was 19 years old. And I used to put in and this was back in the long VHS, tapes, hour-long program for this specific topic, and then one on this, and then one on this, and prospecting and closing and all the different things, right? Like, what percentage of a sales team would you say really wants to learn, is dedicated and wants to improve versus just showing up to get their check?
I didn't know you were going to ask hard questions. So if we're using today's materials and approach, I think it's probably only 30%.
Yeah. But
Because
you said something interesting right there.
today's 19-year-old doesn't connect with the materials that the OEM or many of us in training are still spending money to create.
And let's face it, that brings up something. I love what you just said there, because let's take the 30% that with that sales training or without it, or whatever initiative maybe a business would have done with me, I was probably going to figure it out on my own and get my own training if I needed to. But the reality is that's a very low percentage. And 30%, I would say, is probably being gracious and a little more conservative than I would have been. But you brought up a good point, the way it's presented to them. So in other words, if it's presented in a way that caters more to exactly, because you have an AI program that does this, talk a little bit about that. So, because I think no matter what we do, that 30% is going to keep getting better, because they're going to make sure that they find a way to keep learning, right? So how do we get the other 70% just a little bit better to rise up as well? And so this is where I think you're onto something here. And let's face it, if you can make it more appealing to the 30% too, it's probably the growth in what they retain is just exponential compared to what they would do on their own.
Yeah, they are. The 30% in my world are what we call our power users, right? They are powering through our content at a really quick pace. The ones I worry about is, how do I get to take that usage to 70% where I'm not missing near as many? I want to flip that. And what we decided to do early on was first take data. So we take data about the employee engagement at that dealership. We take skill data, because we built modern retail skill assessments for the selling positions in a dealership. We then take that data and our content and we throw it together in data lakes. And what we're looking for is, where does Joe need help versus Linda need help? And how do I get the right content to them? And we're constantly then incorporating real data from dealership performance every day. So our dealers are automatically sending us data into our data lake. So I know that yesterday you had 4 phone ups and no appointments. So I know what content to get you today to help you. I know you had 6 email leads assigned to you and you got 2 appointments, but neither of them showed. And so how do I help you is based on, let's take data, let's take skills, let's individualize, let's make it fun, let's make it different, let's make it engaging. How about some competition for real world rewards, gift cards, experiences, things that make you go, okay, I'm only 20 points away from that. I want to get it.
Yeah.
So my co-founder, I don't think you guys have met, but he came from this really interesting world of gaming and entertainment and technology. And so therefore, Ken had these ideas, Scott, that were, how do we change learning for adults across all sorts of things? And they're very different, but our clients now, and more importantly, the learners, I don't worry about you, the dealer, near as much as I worry about, can I help that service advisor get his effective labor rate up? Because I know he goes home to his family and goes, hey, everybody get in the car. We're going to Outback tonight. I just rocked it and I went past a bonus level.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what we want to connect, because you just did it right there on camera. If we do that for that advisor, you, the dealer, goes, yeah, that's all right. I'm happy to pay that. He did go past, and effective labor rate did jump again. Yeah. So those are the things we're trying to apply. But what we also didn't do is we didn't strip out humans, man. People want to still, They don't want to just do this. They want to come to Business Bourbon and Cigars.
Yeah.
This is technology helping, but we still gather. So we have these community managers that are constantly reaching out, and there's real humans at the other end of chat and phone.
Before data was easier than it is today to get, and before this tool and what you guys are doing existed, I used to tell people when I was doing this training, right, and doing some of the sales, I was part of that initiative here. It was very easy if I was working with a rep, because wherever I saw the sale not moving forward, I knew it was usually the step right before it that caused it. So in other words, like you brought up, all right, we got these leads, or I made these calls, but I didn't get appointments. So I know I've got to help them be more persuasive and be more relevant in terms of saying something to the client to get the appointment. If it's a no-show, then I know I've got a problem either confirming, or I wasn't compelling enough in setting that appointment. I didn't tie a potential solution or a big claim to what that client really wanted to either avoid or gain most, right? If I got to a point where I just gotten through all the way through a thing, but I couldn't close them, then I knew I had to back up to my wants and needs and my questions. And was I test closing problem? It's impossible to get to the end, not close a deal if you've catered your pitch to exactly what the client wants and you've test closed along the way. It's almost impossible for that deal not to happen. So, that's where, so I always just went to this, but man, it would have been beautiful to actually have the data, because you can do it one at a time. It's easy to recognize, but the problem is you can't be everywhere, right? So to have that data and say, this is where, if I handle just this one thing this week and I get better this week at this one thing, it will have this type of impact moving forward. And then as you get better and better, probably that data will show other things that need to be worked on. So
I'm sure you read Atomic Habits by James Clear.
I have not.
That's a must read. Really good stuff, right? But what I tell our team is, let's help them get 1% better all the time. Let's not try and make them get 50% better in one meeting, because it's not how it's not how the brain processes new habits. We need them to get a new habit and get better at that and better at that and better at that for a month, and then 2 months. Then let's try and adding another habit.
Yeah.
And so through our community and through our work, we really think of some brain methodology around habits and change and individualizing. There's other companies starting to lean into this, and I'm so happy and want them to be successful, because bottom line is, for me personally, there's 372,400 some people working in retail automotive dealerships around America. Those jobs don't have to go away if we start doing different things to help them grow.
It's an interesting comment. 83%. For some reason, the Facebook users aren't showing their profiles aren't coming through on StreamYard, but 83% of high school and college graduates never read a nonfiction book after graduation. Therefore, as leaders, we must have a dedicated education plan in place, making it part of our culture. What are your thoughts on that? I'm assuming that stat is correct. That's a high percentage.
I got to tell you, it doesn't surprise me at all. It's not what schools do. Here's a stat to go along with that. When you test 5-year-olds, 97% of 5-year-olds will score at genius level for creativity. You with me? Genius level for creativity. When you test the same pool at 18 years old, less than 4% test at genius level for creativity.
Why is that?
Schools strip us of creativity. Come on, I was the guy in math class. Maybe there's somebody watching us that was too. I was the guy in math class who, when I got the answer right, I only got a half a point. Why? Because the teacher said I didn't do my work the way they wanted.
Right.
I figured out the right answer, but they didn't like the way I got the answer. I got creative, and they go, sorry, only half points for you.
Yeah.
So fast forward through all the different places in education, math, science, and the way we're taught, and we weren't taught to problem solve. We were taught to stay within these confines, follow formulas, solve problems that way. Well, today's generation looks at that and goes, yeah, I don't like any of that idea. I want to be more creative. I want to roll in problem solving, which gets challenging in the dealership because they get in a dealership and they go, hey, I want to be involved in making this place better. Why do we do this? Why do I do this? What does the average service manager or sales manager say in response?
So, when you're saying this, this is the way we do it, all that type of stuff in terms of answering your question. But, when you're saying this stuff, it brings up, I had a great interview with Josh Linkner, who's a specialist and an expert on innovation. And he brought up a very similar thing that you just said in terms of our creativity when we're younger and how it diminishes as we get older. And it's not that we're less creative. It's a lot of it is fear of looking foolish. So you brought up one example. Well, if I'm only going to get this much of a reward for being creative, then why continue down that path? That's one. But the other thing, he brought up an interesting scenario, and we got on the topic of masterminds. And he said, if you're in a group, he goes, one of the things that we spur to try and spur more innovation and creativity, he goes, I want people to literally role play. Instead of just having a mastermind where half the people in the room don't say anything out of fear of looking dumb, he goes, I make everyone take on a role of somebody that they think of as extremely innovative. In other words, I might say, all right, I'm going to be Elon Musk. All right. Well, he does that for this reason. He goes, if Elon Musk or Steve Jobs was in this room, he goes, their fear is throwing out answers that are too common because everyone has this perception of them that they're these innovative geniuses that they're afraid to come up with the common, boring suggestion or solution because it doesn't measure up to what the expectations are for them. And I just thought that was so interesting. If we took on that persona of like, all right, I'm going to be Steve Jobs or I'm going to be an Elon Musk, or what our answers in our participation, whether it's brainstorming meetings, whether it's masterminds, how much better would we be? How many more breakthroughs would we come up with, right? I mean, who knows? Maybe the way you came up with the math problem and the solution or the answer was much more efficient than the way it's being taught. But we'll never know if it's not rewarded.
Yeah, in fact, in some instances, right, schools are still punishing wrong answers, the wrong method of getting the right answer. And I think that many of us get into business environments because we still have those old world leaders, that we still have leaders saying, look, that's not how we do it. Follow chain of command. You haven't been here long enough to do this. You got to put in more time, right? And I just think all that's changing. I'm happy about it. I'm a 58-year-old guy who's embracing a whole lot of the way the millennial and Gen Zs are coming into the workforce. By the way, I know you see it. They do it in my own company. They come into my company and they go, why do you guys do this? I go, well, we're 2.5 years old. We didn't know any better. What do you think we ought to do? Right? Come on, give me a better idea. I'm all in. The young folks on our team have challenged the heck out of us in really good ways. And I'm really happy about it.
Is there anything I haven't asked you when it comes to mistakes people make about sales training that you'd like to share? Maybe it's about mindset. Maybe it's about preparation
Psychology.
or hidden opportunities. What is it?
Study people. Become a student of people. So, you have to learn the difference between, my wife is extraordinarily analytical. If you talk salesy and you don't give her facts and data and you don't answer her questions directly, even if the answer is, I don't know that, but let's look the data up together, you lose her. But I'm very different, right? If you try to control me, I just ramp up the assertive. You try to tell me what I'm going to do. I go, no, let me tell you what I'm going to do, right? You got to become a student of people and know in order to, and by the way, I think this is just in general in life. You want to form better relationships. Figure out how your friends are different, figure out how your customers are different, and figure out how to create environments where whether it's your friend or your customer, they go, I don't mind hanging around Dave. He seems to get me. And learn how to get people. That's my last one.
Man, great advice. I want to thank you, David OBrien. This was a incredible interview because I like when people challenge the way I think. I like when people come with solutions that aren't the norm. All right. But make a lot of everything you're saying here has so much common sense, but no one does it. And that's what's beautiful about your whole program. I love it. So I am confident that anybody in this audience that is listening today, and then eventually we'll drop this as the podcast as well, we'll get a lot, they'll have a much clearer understanding, let's say, of the mistakes, some of the common mistakes that are happening, and hopefully they can take the steps to avoid them. Can you tell us a little bit about, take a real quick minute here to elevator pitch us on Quantum 5 real quick?
Yeah, Quantum 5 is a training skills company that is employing some cutting edge technology that makes learning a continuum of support for today's generation in business. Our goal is stick with your people to help them improve their performance. And we're doing it in a combination of human and technology blend that just hasn't been done before. So I think the thing that's most unique about us is an ROI guarantee. We are every single month measuring ourselves against a dealer's baseline, and we either make you better or we get fired. And so love it.
Michael Porro gave you a compliment as well. He's stuck on here from beginning to end. So he's a great guy.
He's an awesome person.
Talk about a guy who really cares about his team and the people he works with, and he's created an incredible culture over there. So I love that. But that doesn't happen without trying to level people up. And there's a lot of training that goes on, to make that happen. So outstanding. You just brought up another one. If you don't love them, you should be leading them. So great comment, Michael. Thank you. All right. So thank you again, David OBrien. I want to make sure you follow and subscribe to the Move Crush Count podcast at movecrushcount.com, as well as you can follow us and subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, join our groups on Facebook and LinkedIn. Dave is a member of those groups. If you've got questions for him, you can go right in there, shoot him a question, and he'll be hopefully within 24 hours, he can get back to us and answer some of those if it happens. Do me a huge favor, and this goes to anybody listening. If you could share this episode, our growth comes from people sharing it with their colleagues, their friends, their family. We don't spend any money promoting the show. So all our growth has come organically. So please share it. Today's interview was sponsored by J&L Marketing. J&L is a digital and direct marketing agency that delivers results by helping you outsmart your toughest competitors so you don't have to outspend them. So J&L is going to give a free offer here, an online espionage report that is free. And this is going to happen to the first 7 people who private message me either on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook Messenger. Make sure you bring up the espionage report so I know what the heck you're talking about. But I want you to imagine for a second, what would happen if you could spy on your toughest competitors or your prospects, maybe your own company, without spending any money or taking up any of your time? That's what this espionage report does. If you want to dominate online, it's critical that you know which offers and ads that your competitors are running are working best, which ones are stealing market share from you, all right, and where your biggest opportunities are. The espionage report It'll save you a ton of time. You'll receive insights that deliver the most actionable, tactical, and timely digital marketing tips that you'll need to move the crowd, crush your competition, and count the money. So private message me, request your free online espionage report now. I'm Scott Joseph. I want to thank David OBrien again. Thanks for joining us on Move, Crush, Count. Everybody have a great day.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.